Okay, so welcome to the fourth in our series of five around coaching skills in the context of project management. We thought we'd kind of pick up on that whole, new year theme, and so today's session is it's a new year and everything is changing. What we wanted to do was, since we've had a chance in our last few webinars to really identify what the coaching skills are, how to apply them, we thought we'd put this into the context of managing a project and really bring it home into the whole concept of managing projects and layering those two on top of each other. Now, we're actually going to be layering in change management in this as well. So we're going to be looking at the people aspect of projects, which is really the change, and how coaching can help us with that. So just a little bit of logistics to get started today. Your host, myself, David Donaldson, and Scott is actually taking a little bit of vacation, so he's not with us today. So we wish Scott well in his journeys. He's off for a week, so having a good little recharge with the family. As usual, at the top you have a little icon to drop down to raise your hand if there's any questions or issues. The chat box will be there for the duration, so if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, please pop into there. And of course, as always, we accept applause. Our opening thought today comes from H.G. Wells, and this is kind of interesting because H.G. was born in 1866, so a good 100 years before my time, but still very relevant today. Adopt or perish, now as ever, in nature's exhortable imperative. So, we're constantly needing to adopt. We're constantly needing to change and move forward. And that pace of change is really only getting faster and faster. Having trouble with the audio is a separate call-in number. No, Karen, there is not, unfortunately. We only do the audio over IP. Now, we do record all of these, so if we are having too much trouble, if it's not audible, then you can always watch the record. Okay, so just to bring us back into the fold, we looked at the Oscar model a couple of webinars ago, and the Oscar model is an acronym: outcome, situation, choices, action, and review. And just to expand on that ever so slightly, outcome is around the desired outcome. So when we're looking at doing coaching, it's really about that future state. So much like change management, much like project management, how do we go from where we are today to our desired destination? And the desired destination, we need to define that. The situation. Now, this is an interesting one because perception is reality. And what is really happening? It's very easy for us to have an outlook on the situation that is not in line with the actual situation. So this is where that third-party view, the 360 type evaluations, things like that can really be a huge benefit help for us because they can really help us get into tune to what is really happening. We want to generate some multiple options, possible choices. Very key here to generate those multiple options so that we can have some choice, and sometimes that first option isn't the best, or perhaps we end up taking a blend of the various actions. Finally, what actions will you take? And I've underlined the word will here because this is about taking that action, taking that step forward, making that decision. And then of course, reviewing, did it have that desired effect? Did it produce the results? Looping us back to the beginning of did we get to where we needed to go? If not, let's go down the situation again. What's our situation? How has it changed? What are the choices? Are they the same? Are they different? We have now experience with a particular action. We're going to choose a different action potentially. So with all of this in mind, I want to think about it in the context of the project. Now, one of the challenges with any conversation around projects, especially when we look at how to layer something like coaching or change management on top of it, is different projects are quite frankly different. Now, I'm going to use a simplified model here of initiating, planning, executing, closing, the four basic phases or stages of a project. as we all know, projects can be much more complex than this. They can have nuances. For this discussion today, we're going to use a relatively simplified model. So we're going to think about, during that initiating stage of our project, what are we doing? How can we apply the coaching model? Same thing for planning, executing, and closing. Now, I've got the Oscar model displayed down in the bottom so that we'll have that for reference as we move forward. And I want to think about initiating. And as I was putting this together and thinking, how do we layer coaching and change management and project management? How do we blend them all together? So I started from that project management perspective with the 4 stages: initiating, planning, executing, closing. And I thought, okay, let's dig into each one of those. And I initially tried to layer coaching straight onto that. And then it occurred to me, coaching isn't about phases or stages of a project. Coaching is about people. And people are critical to a project. Without our people, we don't have a project. People make or break the project. So in the initiating phase, I thought, who are the key players? Who are the folks that we have to work with at the various stages of a project? And in initiating, and it's a short list, it's a basic list, I thought about some of the key players: the client, the end users, or in change management parlance, as we often refer to them as the targets. These are the folks who are actually going to change. In project management parlance, our end users are usually the folks who are going to be using that product or service. The sponsor, who supports and legitimizes and funds our project. And then, of course, other related or connected stakeholders who are a little bit more outside the fold. So we've got our various people or players. But there again, I'm looking, going, coaching, okay, well, what's the outcome? What do we want them to do? What's the situation? What are the choices that we have? What action are going to take? And I felt there was still a piece missing. So I brought in Bridges' model of change: endings, neutral zone, and new beginnings. And then, okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. So when we look at Bridges' model in conjunction with project management, now initiating, we're right at the beginning of the project. So initiating, we're at the beginning of the change curve, or the change model, which is endings. And Bridges is an interesting model because it does begin with the endings. And what endings is all about, for context, it's about letting go. So we think about where we're currently at, what we're doing. We need to let go of our current state before we're able to adopt the new state. So we need to kind of let go of the past, as it were. And really, that's what a lot of initiating on a project's about. We're about to get started down that path. And part of that is we need to let go of our current state. So as we're initiating the project, as we're looking at this new thing that we're going to implement, we're going to bring in, we're going to create, we want to be thinking about, especially for our targets and our end users, how can we help them let go? I'm going to pose our first question for our session today. What challenges have you experienced with key players during initiation? And I've kept the list of key players there for reference. So the client, the end users, the targets, sponsors, and related stakeholders. So take a moment and type into the question. Okay, so from Chelsea, absent sponsors. Oh, yes. I'm sure everyone is nodding their heads at that one. Craig, I created this system. It's good. I don't like the new system. Oh, love that one, Craig. Yes, so we have those folks who are holding on to the old system because they were the ones who created it. We get that sense of ownership. They are voluntold to champion the initiative. Carrie Ann, I love that one. Thank you. That's we're going to see that pop up again at the end. From Sinete, I hope I get your name correct. Clear understanding of the impact of their area. Absolutely. Andrew, understanding between the players. Andrew, if you could expand on that for me a little bit, I'm not 100% sure what, that could go a couple ways. Karen, not understanding the need for the change, very key. Buy-in, different priorities from Val. They have a target date in mind. irrespective of the work involved. Yeah, there's another good one. Um, so we've got some really good challenges here. Now I want to think about how we can um, apply the coaching model. So I want you to continue typing and just think about some of the ways that we can apply the coaching model. Okay, so Andrew's chimed in. Just just poking at the initial need to get folks on the same page. Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought you were going. Chelsea, people hoarding information to derail the discovery or the change taking place. Um, and yeah, we think about that one, Chelsea. There's a number of reasons why people want to be hoarding that information, and that may be a fear piece around loss of autonomy or mastery. It may be fear of losing some of their domain, some of their area of expertise, and really kind of not wanting to let go of the old way. So I want you to think about how we could use the coaching concepts, and even maybe even in particular the Oscar model itself, to help folks with this initiating phase. Okay, we've got a couple people typing. Oh, multiple attendees typing. That's always my favorite. Okay, all right, beautiful. Part of previous challenge from Carrie Ann. Human nature is to slide back the old way of doing things. Not that they don't want to let go, but sometimes we provide them with opportunities to revert back to the old system. Absolutely. And that human nature piece, Carrie Ann, very well stated. We actually there's a physiological reason around this. Our brain creates new neural pathways as we practice new things. It becomes easier. There's a number of different models to describe this. One of my favorites is the 4 stages of learning. In the 4th stage, you get to unconscious competence, meaning you can do it without thinking about it. It takes conscious effort, hence energy, to change. You need to focus and concentrate on things, and it's very easy to slide back. So one of the concepts that we bring out in change management is the concept of the burning bridge. And the burning bridge is taking away that old system. So as you say, sometimes we provide them opportunities to revert back to those old systems. And I learned this the hard way as a young change manager, project manager years ago. I used to believe that it was a good idea to keep the old system alive, so that should the new system not work or if there was a problem, they can still get their job done, and sort of give people the opportunity to transition more gently. And I've since learned, you put 2 systems side by side, the old one and the new one, people are going to use the old one. I mean, they're going to chug along using the old one. So we need to kind of burn that bridge. Now, we can still manage our risk there in that we can disable the old system. We can have it available should we need it, but we kind of take away the access or hide it, as it were. From Craig, involve people in the process, absolutely. And I think really, Craig, that gets to the very core of what we're talking about when it comes to coaching. Coaching is all about how do we work with that other party to help them come to the conclusion, to come to the destination on their decision, and involving them in that process. So this is really key. We want to be involving those key stakeholders early on. Get those end users, get the targets involved early on. From Judy, communicate, communicate, communicate. Absolutely. Again, from Carrie Ann, best way to move forward, encourage them to find opportunities with the time saved via coaching them. Oh, love that one. Yeah. So encourage them to find those opportunities with that time saved. We're going to be moving forward. That's a fact. As we saw in our opening quote, we need to evolve, we need to adapt, and especially in the project world, we're often moving forward at times being forced to based on potentially regulations, based on advances in technology, as old systems are no longer being supported, all of these kinds of factors. I was catching a thing on the radio the other day. There's a gentleman who's building an archive of digital media. And one of the biggest challenges he's having is there's physical technology that no longer can be read. So you think about disk drives. Like, I mean, when I was first introduced to computers, we had 3.5 inch and sorry, 5.25 inch and 3.5 inch floppy disks. Um, and so I came in just after the big 8 inch disks kind of went away, and you can't buy a computer today with a floppy drive. The CD is going out. I mean, my current laptop does not have a CD drive, right? Everything's going USB, everything's going into the cloud and so on. So there's all this media, all this data and applications that he's having trouble preserving, not because it's disappearing, but because the systems that would allow access to those are going away. So you think about, do I have the right program to access that information? Do I have the right physical hardware to access that information? Do I have the operating systems to run that physical hardware and so on? So it creates a very interesting thing around, we're often forced into changes and kind of moving forward. So we think of some of the key players in the planning phase. We're now more into the internal team, the project manager, the team members. Now, I've kept the end users here as a key player because, in my humble opinion, we need to keep them in the loop the whole time. And this is the fault of waterfall when misapplied. That whole idea of initiating, we're gonna figure out what the destination is, and then we're gonna disappear for 6 months while we do all this planning in secret and execution in secret, and then we come back with the finished product. And this is one area of Agile that's really, really key, is that constant flow, that constant input from your end users. And this goes back to, I think it was Craig's comment or Carrie Ann's around involve them in the process. So we're moving into our team members as a key resource. How have you dealt with resistant team member? So we often have resistant end users, people who are like, I'm getting this new system, I'm not terribly happy with it. But what about a team member who's helping build and so right out of the gate, Megan, the classic focus on the why. Why are we doing this? That is a great strategy, but it does only take us so far. Excuse me. So definitely we need to have that foundation there, because without that we're building on sand. But then we also got to kind of go beyond that. From Judy, ask questions to determine the root cause of the resistance. What is holding them back? And Judy's chiming in on agree on the focus on the why. And thank you for that, Judy, because this is exactly the core of what we're talking about, asking those questions, right? And it's interesting because I was on a project a little while back where I was a resistant team member, and the person leading it, gave me the why, and that was not the reason for my resistance. I was 100% in agreement with the why. I was resistant and not in agreement on the how. I was like, yep, I totally agree with that. I understand all the benefits. And this person was absolutely adamant that once I understood all the benefits, I'd be on board. So, we went through all of that. Something he never did is he never asked me the root cause of my resistance. He never asked me the why am I or what's the root cause of that? What's going on there? Craig, unfortunately not very well, but learning to ask questions and listen better. Love it. Experience is a wonderful teacher, isn't it, Craig? Thank you for that honesty. Carrie Ann, listen to them. They honestly have some really great insights. Then bring them on board. And thank you, Carrie Ann, because I have come to learn that resistors are some of my best friends. When I'm running a project, when I'm running a change, resistors become your best friends, because you know what, they have very likely good reasons for resisting. So let's figure out what those are. Now, those good reasons may be very regional, may be very local. It may be that it's something within their department or their specific situation that, honestly, we can't help them with, and that's okay too, but we can work through those. If it is something where we do have a fundamental flaw in the project, it's good to hear those. They can let us know we're heading down a dead end path. So thank you, Carrie Ann. From Julie, give them opportunity for them to express their concerns, then listen. Absolutely. Very key there, Julie, is giving them the opportunity to express those concerns. In fact, I would even take it one step further and say, not only give them the opportunity, but encourage it. People really don't want to be labeled as a dissenter. They don't want to be labeled as a resistor, and there's a bit of a stigma there. So, we really need to help draw some of that out, right? From Val, understanding the real, what is the real challenge for them? Love it. And keyword there, Val, real, because like I said, what's the real situation? What's really going on? And that really keys into the S of Oscar. First, understand his or her argument, hear and communicate. Love it. Melissa, in the case of what you just said, I would ask, what could we do differently? Absolutely, and that, Melissa, is exactly what was missing in that scenario. And you're absolutely right. It's, what, let's get focused on the benefit. Let's get focused on that destination, but let's be flexible on the how. From Val again, resistors can help you identify the risks, also represent how others may respond. Ah, beautiful, love that. So two key elements here from Val. First, help you identify the risks, right? Risk identification is key. Managing of risks is one of your most determinant factors of success in any project. But I love the second part. Also represent how others may respond. Now, this goes back a bunch of years, but I was on a volunteer project, and we had a real divide of the team. There was kind of half the team saying, path A, and half the team saying path B. And I remember having a conversation offline with one of the other team members, because I was on path B and he was on path A, and he says, Dave, I don't understand why you're resisting. Everyone else is agreeing on path A. And I paused and I said to him, you might want to actually ask them, because what we had a very vocal team A or path A person. And when we actually did a vote, although it was very, very close, because it was like, 6-5, the majority was actually on path B. But because we had such a loud voice on the path A, and he was really campaigning hard, and we had much quieter voices on the path B, it wasn't really obvious, how that was coming forward. So, yeah, some really good points there, folks. Fantastic. Okay. We move into execution. Our team players, again, the team members. We now start to bring in contractors, suppliers. We're now starting to work with folks outside of our I just realized I'm in the wrong thing here. There we go. We're now starting to work with people outside of our sphere of influence. We're working with people outside of our company. So this is where coaching models and influencing skills and things like this can become really, really key. Again, the client and the end users. I really want to highlight keeping these folks in the process flow throughout, because it's really, our client gives us our sign off at the end. Our end users are really helping define what we're doing, how it's going to be a benefit, and really having that element of success when we're done. Now, we've been looking at the bridges model. We identified that initiating was at the endings, which is the beginning of this, and executing is here in the neutral zone. Now, just want to spend a few moments and look at the neutral zone from a change management perspective. The neutral zone is all about transition. The neutral zone is about, we've let go of the past, but we haven't adopted yet the future. And this is the time of experimentation. This is the time of turbulence and turmoil. And this is where, depending upon your personality type, you may struggle the most. We've kind of let go of the comfortable piece of the past, and we're moving into that future piece, but we haven't quite got there yet. So this is where supporting folks through that turbulence, through that things aren't sorted and figured yet, we're figuring it out. This is where having things like experimenting is good, and having a sandbox to play in is good, and those sorts of factors. So we move into the closing phase of the project. And in the closing phase, clients moving to the top of the list because, of course, they're doing the sign off. End users, our targets, they're also moving to the top of the list because these are the folks who are now going to be accepting, using, leveraging that new piece of technology, that new system, the new process, whatever that looks like. Our sponsors are also going to be key. We're getting to that stage of, are we hitting on targets, budgets, timelines, and of course our related and connected stakeholders who are often, closing out their contracts and so forth. So looking at the bridges model, we're not quite at new beginnings. This is a little bit of a false statement here. We're not quite at new beginnings because new beginnings is really about the adoption, is really about that change of minds and behaviors. But this is really kind of the closest that we can approximate this to, because to me, the closing phase of a project really sits kind of right about here. Right, we've kind of ended that neutral zone. The experimentation phase is kind of over. We've solidified whatever it is. We're now moving into, let's adopt this. Let's work with this. We're going to, make it the new normal. So with that in mind, I'm going to get a third question going here. And the question we want to ask is, now the project is complete, what can we do to help? So from Carrie Ann, provide them a safe space to practice their new skills. This is really, really key. In change management, we often talk about learning anxiety and survival anxiety. Survival anxiety is that anxiety of, I'm not going to survive, so therefore I need to change. This is actually a good thing, and we want to dial that up. Learning anxiety, on the other hand, is the anxiety of, I'm not going to be able to learn the new skills to become capable and competent in the new environment. So how do we help people learn those new skills? Give them a safe place to practice. And when I've been doing IT projects, especially software projects, when I can, I set up a sandbox. And a sandbox is a duplicate of the production system, typically in a test environment, where a user, an end user target, can go to play. And basically what they're going to do is they can practice their new skills. They can try out the new system, the new process in that safe environment. Calgary Airport recently did a huge rebuild. I think they added another terminal. They redesigned the whole thing. And what they did is they actually created some interactive virtual reality environment where new employees to the airport could actually literally walk through the airport and interact with different kiosks and terminals and get to know the layout of the airport as well as, have some role plays around how to interact and support people. So they were given this practice environment, to be able to go and play. Just so key. All right. From Craig, ensure proper instruction has been offered before live. Oh, Craig, it's such a basic thing, but my goodness, how many times have we seen it not being done? Right? And I want to just add to that, not only proper instruction, but time to learn. There is a learning dip. There's when we look at performance, as we transition in the new system, even though it's bigger, better, faster, quicker, initially performance goes down because we need to learn. So thank you for that, Craig. Chelsea, ensure that there is a strong clarity and communication on where to find support resources. Oh, love that one, Chelsea. Thank you. Yeah, that was a tough lesson for me. We need to make sure that our support services are there. Now, if we are in a larger environment that has, that sort of formal support desk, we need to support the support desk. So, we're going to roll this new system out. We need to let the, support desk know that there's a new system coming out, what types of questions to anticipate, how to solve those, where to go for level 2 escalation. Right? So if they can't handle it, where do they go? And, where do people go for support? So I'm rolling out this new system. I'm an end user. The new system arrives on my computer. I try to use it. It doesn't quite work. Where do I go? Who do I call? Right? What does that look like? Love that one. Thank you. Beth, have leaders and change champions talk it up. Absolutely, Beth. And I love that you put in there leaders and change champions because we need to have these at multiple levels. Yeah. From Judy, continue to communicate. And I love the word continue there because you've been communicating through this whole thing, during probably not so much an initiation, but definitely planning, execution. You're giving people status updates, you're letting them know what's going on, anticipating what's coming down the pike. But we need to continue that communication because it's easy to fall into the, oh, we're done, so we can, relax now. Beth, ensure support structures if when questions arise. Absolutely. Val, ensure they have been part of the process. Love that one, Val. Absolutely. It's, we can't understate, or excuse me, we can't overstate how important it is that we have that input. Include an evaluation in your implementation to allow an opportunity for feedback and tweaking. Absolutely. So, and we often do this at a project management level, but we should also be doing this at an implementation level. How was the process from a on time, on budget? Did we deliver what we said we're going to deliver? But also, how was the process from that, user adoption perspective? Um, Put in place a set of SMEs at the peer level. Oh, Chelsea, very wise words, absolutely. We need to have those experts, so get them trained up. Enable an online portal to submit questions. Right, we've got lots of technology for doing this, and especially in today's world where we're very computer based. Um, think about your environment. I remember working with one environment. It was a manufacturing food processing, and they did have some electronic things in place that were very ineffective because the reality is the folks on the line, A, aren't on a computer, B, don't have their phones with them because they're not allowed on the line. So how do we actually get those communications to those people in the key amount of times? And a good old notice board outside the lunchroom was the most effective. So that's where the main communication happens. So we want to definitely work within the constraints and environment of the particular environment. So if you are working in an online environment, you've got that connection, more of an office environment type thing. Fantastic. Encourage feedback and open dialogue. Frequent check-ins. The first day, week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, month, 3 months. Love it. Absolutely. And you can set those expectations up ahead of time so that people know that you want that feedback. They know the frequency of the feedback. But the interesting thing too is, Carrie Ann, on that comment, is when you set up formal things like, first day, first week, first 2 weeks, and so on, you're showing that we're dedicating resources to this. Now, if you dedicate resources, you usually get the same reflected back. So people spend that time and effort. Check in often at first, and then less as time goes by. Absolutely, because of course, as time goes by, um, it should reduce the need. Craig commenting on Chelsea's one. Love that answer. Absolutely agree with you, Craig. Carrie Ann, for tech, definitely offers support. Develop a warm room of experts that are there for the go live and at least 2 weeks afterward. Love that. Yeah. So, we may need to set up, depending upon what level this is at, as you say, that war room of expert. We may have the extra um, support desk for the initial piece, especially if you're doing the pilot. Carry on, walk the floor. Love that one. Can't tell you how important it is to observe the change as it rolls out. Yeah, those private, and I call it the water cooler status report. Those private conversations as you're walking the floor, as you're seeing what's going on firsthand, and this ties into a change management concept known as the local change agent. So let's take Carrie Ann's scenario here of walk the floor, which I 100% agree with. And we're now rolling this out across 10 sites from Vancouver to Halifax. It's really hard to walk the floor in Calgary when you're based in Toronto or in Regina and Montreal and so on. And this is where your local change agents come in. They're going to do the walking for you, so they're going to be your eyes and ears, and in this case, in the walking, your legs. So Val commenting on Carrie's. Um, we so often implement and then we are on to the next project priority. Val, you've raised a really good point there, which is around resourcing. And we are often on to the next priority project because, of course, um, that's what we do, right? It's like, okay, you're doing this project, you're a good project manager, I need you on the next one. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Now, if we look at it from a pure project management perspective, and there we are, we think about, initiating the project, getting it started. We do the planning. How are we going to get from A to B? We do the executing. We actually do the work. We close it down. We get the sign off. It goes live. Um, we have day 2 of live. We check to see a bunch of people are using it. We get a sign off from the client, et cetera, et cetera. And at that point, that moment, we're often yanked off and we're on to the next project. So yeah, that is challenging. And now we get into the resourcing aspects. And um, this is the huge difference between project management and change management, because change management's about me, the individual, changing my behaviors and thoughts. Project management is about implementing the product. So as we continue in these discussions we have and layering these, I want to think about how the bridges model of endings, neutral zone, and new beginnings sort of layers with the, initiating, planning, executing, closing of a project. And really the initiating for a lot of people is the endings piece, is the letting go. It's the decision to make that go forward. Now, depending upon where I am in the organization, there may be projects being initiated that I have no idea on, and I'm not going to hear about them until we're somewhere into planning and execution, at which point that becomes my um, entrance to the process and my endings. The planning and executing, especially for the project team, especially for those SMEs who are helping develop it. This is our experimenting in turmoil. This is the neutral zone. This is the let's try this out. Let's do a little experiment here. Let's see what does work, what doesn't work, and these sorts of factors. And then finally closing. And this is where I think we have our probably biggest opportunity as project managers. This is the new beginnings phase. And as I said, closing really kind of falls, if I want to get very prescriptive on this, closing really kind of falls, here on the bridges model, right? It's really about kind of that we've finished the experimenting in turmoil, we've got things solidified, hence the new system is put in place. It takes some time after that for us as end users, for us as those change targets, to transition our behaviors so that the new way becomes the norm, right? And we think about, as we're, adopting new systems, um, when we merged a year ago, we had a huge upheaval and change in systems on the back end as we brought the two companies together. And now it's, it's easy and normal and regular for me to go in and locate that data on the new intranet and leverage those new tools on the new intranet. Um, so we've got the new system implemented, February last year, and now I'm starting to get into that comfort zone of, yeah, I don't really remember how we used to do it, and and you get into that new comfort zone. But to Val's comment earlier, it's really that whole it takes time, and as project managers, we're usually plucked off the project. We've got the signature, which is the traditional end of the project, and we're on to the next one. Which can make it a little challenging. But of course, now we need to go back to our key stakeholders, our sponsors, and see if we can get that additional resource and support. So some parting thoughts to leave you with. Remember, people need support. Okay, this is kind of key. They need support, and this is going beyond that whole product piece, right? They need support in letting go. And there was a comment right at the beginning around I built the old system and I don't want to let go of that. So we're going to need some support to help people let go of that. Never, um, a lot of times we get into the old system is, bad and wrong, and it's not working and it's broken and we need to replace it. Well, let's not forget that that old system has been there for the last 5, 10, 15 years, whatever that is. And it's been doing its job and it has got us through. So how about if we celebrate what it was, which was a good system that did its job for a period of time, and then layer in the reality of it was a good system, it's now needing to be replaced, right? Because we've got new environment, new capabilities, new requirements, and things like that. And this can help with those folks who are having difficulty letting go because it is kind of their, world, as it were. People need support in that transition. Remember, the neutral zone is all about turmoil. It's about experimentation. You want to encourage people to experiment, to give it a try. And this is kind of where some of that learning anxiety piece starts to kick in. And then support in the new adoption. They've given it a try, it broke, it didn't work. Okay, let's make sure we have those support mechanisms in place. Let's make sure that they're working. Let's make sure that we're fixing any of those issues that have been arised through that testing. And then, of course, it becomes supporting that ongoing practice so that it becomes the new normal. It becomes the new comfortable zone. The smartphone, the iPhone, is 11 years old. I mean, it's only been 11 years that we've had, these touchscreen color internet device attached to our hip. So kind of hard to remember what it was like before then. I mean, it's I can kind of remember back to when cell phones first came out, and we called them mobile phones, and it was a suitcase with a cord, and then we had the brick. I don't know if any of you remember the brick, but the Motorola brick came out, and the thing was the size of a little bit bigger than a novel, and and then they got smaller and smaller and smaller, and of course we ended up with the flip phone, and then the touch screen and so forth. But you think back at what it was like. I mean, when I was younger, just coming out of school, car phones, you'd have to go to a shop to have them installed, and there were several parts, and somewhere in the back was this big box controller that on my brother's car, they actually took the spare tire out, and I was driving his car one day and got a flat, and I went to go change the tire, and I open up the back compartment where the spare tire is supposed to be, and there's the box for the cell phone. So it's interesting how we forget some of those things that we kind of what used to be the norm, and now phones are tiny, and you don't install them in cars anymore. You just carry them with you. But of course, we've now got the texting and distracted driving laws that we've got to adopt to. So there's a lot of people. I see a lot of people driving around with they're looking down at their screens while they're driving, and we've got to get that new adoption. So the final piece that I want to leave you with is change happens when it's accepted, not when it's enforced. And there was lots of good comments today around that whole concept of let's involve them. Let's get them being the targets, being the end users. Let's get them to work through it on their own. And it's going to be different paces and different things for different people. But really the change happens when it's been accepted, not enforced. So the more we can use that coaching structure to support people and encourage people and help make it their idea, the faster, easier they're going to adopt it. Yeah. Okay. There is that overarching need, though. Adapt or perish, now as than ever, is nature's exhortable imperative. It's been there for a few hundred years, according to H.G. Wells, and I'm sure we can find some other quotes going predate him. It's the reality, and how we move forward through that and how we can better support our teams through that, I think, is going to be key. So thanks again, everyone, for spending the time today. We've got one more in our coaching series coming up next month. Our plan is to do kind of a bit of a live coaching session, and we're gonna come up with some scenarios, and we're gonna get one of our coaches online and see where we can go with this. So thank you guys for taking time. Again, as always, I'm going to leave the comment section open for a few moments if anyone has any questions or comments. Love the